And most zoos will feed either before the crowd gets in or after, later.
Sure. And they won't feed exactly when they're in there because some people are just terrible people.
Right. So,
which in our Kansas City zoo, I'm not going to worry about that too much because it's none of my business and I'm not here to sue the zoo. I'm just here to see the animals. However, if any animals are in pain, that is inflicting pain on me too because I cannot handle stuff like that. Anyways, let's get back onto the topic so I don't continue talking this much. Sorry, I'm just really talkative today.
Oh God, you being really talkative is so horrible for our podcast, Krysta.
Really?
No. Being facetious. So, now, I told you the first modern sighting of the Scape Ore Swamp monster was in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. But before that, the creature was seen by the Creek Indians.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of versions of the story. I just picked one. And by the way, Josh Gates didn't get this fact. So, Josh, in your face, buddy, we win. Anyway.
Don't say that.
So, I'm just going to read the story because I feel like I can't paraphrase it as well as it is just the way it is. Several Creek is the kind of Indians. Now, Creek is the name given them by the English because in their territory, there's a lot of waterways.
Fair enough.
So, several Creek were gathered together and formed a hunting camp. A hunter came back one evening and told the others, I have found a big bear tree. A bear tree. He told the rest of the hunters, and they said to one another, tomorrow morning we will set out, build a fire there, and smoke the bear out so that we can see her. They slept and next day started off and came back to the place where there was a big tree and it had a hollow. And the braves said to one another, a bear surely lives here. So they started a fire under it. The smoke filled up the hollow inside, and soon they were very surprised when not a bear came out, but a giant lizard. The hunters saw it and ran away. The big lizard chased them down. It ran along till it caught one of them and came back with him. Came with him in the big tree and threw him down into it. Then it chased another and did the same. Each in turn it overtook, caught, and brought him back. Only one was left. It chased him, and after it had gone a long distance, overtook and brought him back. When it's coming through a place where the trees were thick, a panther was lying asleep in the tree. When the big lizard got there with the man, the panther awoke and jumped upon it. The lizard let the man go and jumped upon the panther in turn, and they began to fight. The man saw this and ran away. That's maybe the smartest thing I've heard all day.
There you go.
Of the people who had gone far away from their homes to hunt, only one came back. He told those people how the big lizard had killed all of the others. So let's talk about the Scape Ore Swamp. Oh, go ahead, Krysta. Do you have something you wanted to say? I would.
So more or less, the lizard did not want to give up his food. So he decided to fight the panther for the food. And so more or less he got away.
Or he was mad that they started a fire in his tree. He was going to punish them all for it, and then the panther got in his way. And he fought the panther.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, either way, yeah.
I think it's important, though, before we get too far into this, that we look at the Scape Ore Swamp itself. Now, first of all, let's take the name.
Name.
Yes, name. The Scape Ore Swamp. Now, originally, if you look on old maps, they called it, well, about 60 years or so ago, they called it the Scape Ore Swamp, H-O-R-E. They've dropped the H, obviously, somewhere in that time. But before that...
Obvious reasons.
Before that, if you go way back, Scape had an E at the beginning and a D at the end, and Ore had a W and H in front of it.
As in escaped. Or.
As in escaped or no W and H, because I will not say that word because a lot of people don't like it.
I said it.
It's a euphemism for prostitute.
Please don't take any of this serious. We are not calling our...
Yeah, well, no, of course we're not.
We are not calling our listeners these unacceptable words. We are saying or mainly because we do not want to offend anybody. Thank you. Continue on.
Right. So, here's the story as to how the swamp got its name. But before I do this, I want to stress that this comes from colonial America. And colonial America, something did not need to be true to name something after it.
That is true.
That is true. Yep, definitely.
Which is why there's Paul Bunyan this and Paul Bunyan that at different points in this country, because even though they knew it wasn't real, they named stuff after it. So I don't know how much of either of these stories is true, but I'm going to give you both the stories that I found to explain the name. The first is that back in colonial America during the Revolutionary War, a bunch of redcoats, a bunch of British soldiers.
Yep, I know what a redcoat is. That's to my social studies teacher.
We're partying with several prostitutes.
Right.
And so some American militia soldiers found them, and they took the British soldiers captive because the British didn't have the pants on, didn't have the rifles near them. Sort of embarrassing for the British. Meanwhile, the prostitutes and their company fled into the swamp.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, you may say something real quick.
Get some pants on, you filthy animals.
So that's one story about how it got its name. A further story is that a prostitute was practicing her business. Some of the local law enforcement showed up and demanded a cut of the money she had earned. She refused to give it to them, so they were going to arrest her. She fled into the swamp where they were not able to find her, and she lived happily until her dying day years later. So, I don't know if either of those stories is true, but that's why they say that's why they say the swamp got its name. And again, in that time, something didn't have to be true to name stuff after it. So, we don't know. Now, what else do we know about the swamp? Well, it's home to coyotes, bobcats, bears, and salamanders.
Lots of fun things.
Yay! I searched up salamanders because I forgot what a salamander. Yeah. A Komodo dragon
was called.
Yeah. And
there you go.
And then I realized that's not a Komodo dragon. Honey, that's a salamander, that's an amphibian, not a lizard.
Right.
Please get that right next time.
Well, and that's something curious. Other than the lizard man himself, I could find no lizards that live in the swamp.
He ate them.
Now, I'm sure it's got, like, skinks.
He ate them.
He wanted to be the top dog, so he ate them.
Wouldn't that make him the top lizard?
I'm sure it had skinks, because we have skinks here in Missouri.
Okay.
But most other lizards do not do well in winter, and in South Carolina, they have winters.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The swamp itself is roughly 120 meters above sea level. It surrounds a small part of the PD River, and it is roughly 250 square kilometers in size.
Okay.
So it's a biggish area that something could get lost in. The Scape Ore Swamp, as we know it today.
Sure.
Any questions so far?
Nope.
Not so far.
None whatsoever.
Alrighty. Well, now it's time to focus on our sightings and to talk about the swamp monster himself.
Ah, yes, Mr. Swamp Monster Man. I'm gonna call you Larry.
But before we get into that, I say we take a moment for some words from our sponsors.
Yay!
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sponsors are important.
Sponsors are very important.
Yes.
So here we go. We talked about the Scape Ore Swamp.
Yay! Yeah.
Let's talk about some of the sightings. Now, here's the problem I have with these sightings, okay?
Be very, very quiet.
There's not...
I blame you.
There's not a lot of them.
Oh.
At least not on a national level. Now, when Josh Gates and Destination Truth covered this 15 years ago, they got the town to hold a town meeting, and he asked them about it. And everybody in that town has a story about an encounter with the swamp monster.
Yes.
Okay. But can I just point out to you, as someone who grew up in Ishi's kind of small area town-ish, and
You grew up in Independence. There's thousands of people here.
You, not me. You. I said you. Mister, I threw a crab apple at a goat?
That's a bad idea, Father.
Well, apparently it activates their medulla oblongata and makes them very upset.
You shouldn't take off an animal no matter what. You shouldn't even have thrown that crab apple.
I was like 9 at the time.
I don't care. You had a brain. You can use it.
She's 11. If she's smart enough to tell you it's dumb, maybe it was dumb. I'm just saying. But anyway, what the point I was trying to make is that when you're in a small town, if there is a legend, everyone adopts a little piece of that legend.
Exactly.
So I kind of feel like it might be, it could just be local lore. Everybody's got a little piece of the, oh yeah, I got a swamp story for you. I got a swamp monster story for you. Absolutely.
And still,
It could be. I'm not discounting it.
right.
I'm just saying.
Well,
I'm sorry. If the swamp monster's listening, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to poo-poo.
Okay. This is structured, you know that, right?
No.
The end is when we throw out our theories and whatnot. We don't need to, in the middle of the podcast, say, I don't believe it, and maybe drive listeners away who are waiting to hear our facts about whether or not it's real.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun. I apologize, guys.
Mostly I'm just picking on you.
I know.
Our podcast is not fully spread it apart yet. We still need a year or two. Also,
What?
I just ignore everything I said.
It's okay. Again, editing is a wonderful thing.
Like I just said.
So,
everyone in the town has seen or had some kind of swamp monster experience, yes?
yeah. And that's the problem. Because I wasn't able to find those local stories. So I don't know if they add anything real or if they're just little bits of local legend that everybody believes or everybody has bought into.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So then what else has happened? Where are there stories from passers through, family members, local media?
What I have are the big stories that were reported and made it into the media. And a fair number of them have made it. It's just... Again, I don't have as many... Okay, like, compared to the Falk monster, the Scape Ore Swamp monster is rare. That guy doesn't come out and see people much at all. Although, weirdly, he was just seen a few months ago.
Oh, He
He knew
we
we'd be
were gonna
talking
talk
about him. Yep, I was going to say...